There is a place, just miles from one of the most powerful cities in the world, where time doesn't move the same way. Where a single night can feel like a year. Where the rules are not written on paper, but enforced in silence, in shadows, and sometimes, in violence. Rikers Island isn't a prison in the traditional sense. It's a jail. A place where thousands of men and women wait, some for trial, some for sentencing, some for a future that may never come. But once you're inside, those distinctions stop mattering. Because survival here doesn't depend on why you came in. It depends on how quickly you understand the system that runs beneath the surface. And what happens if you don't, is something most people never talk about. The journey begins in silence. A transport bus moves through the city, crossing over narrow bridges and industrial roads. Inside, there are no conversations, only the low hum of the engine and the occasional clink of metal restraints. For many, this is their first time. For others, it's a return. But everyone feels the same thing when the skyline disappears behind them. Uncertainty. As the bus approaches the gates of Rikers Island, the outside world fades. Steel fences rise higher. Watchtowers come into view. Cameras track every movement. And then, the doors open. The first step onto Rikers soil is not dramatic. There's no announcement, no ceremony. Just a command. Move. Processing begins immediately. Personal belongings are taken. Names are called. Bodies are searched, thoroughly, methodically, without hesitation. Every inch of individuality is stripped away. What replaces it is a number. A classification. A place in a system that is already in motion. And from this moment forward, everything changes. Because intake is not just paperwork. It's the first test. Inside Rikers, where you go matters more than why you're there. Classification determines everything, your housing unit, your cellmates, your daily reality. But the process is far from perfect. Officers rely on records, behavior assessments, prior arrests, gang affiliations, anything that might predict risk. Sometimes, they get it right. Other times, they don't. And when they don't, the consequences aren't administrative. They're immediate. Inmates are sorted into different facilities within the island, some more volatile than others. High-risk units are known for constant tension. Fights erupt quickly. Authority is fragile. Lower-risk areas offer no guarantees either. Violence can surface anywhere, often without warning. But what most newcomers don't realize is this. The official classification system is only one layer. There's another system, unspoken, invisible, and far more influential. And it begins the moment you enter your housing unit. The doors open. And everything inside pauses. For just a second. It's subtle, but unmistakable. People are watching. Not openly. Not aggressively. But carefully. Every movement is noted. How you walk. Where you look. What you carry. Because in Rikers, introductions don't happen with words. They happen with observation. There are no assigned roles here, at least not officially. But within minutes, you begin to understand who holds influence. It's not always the loudest person. Often, it's the one who says the least. The one others glance toward before making decisions. The one who doesn't need to raise their voice. Because their presence alone is enough. For a new arrival, this moment is critical. Say too much, you stand out. Say too little, you seem weak. Make the wrong eye contact, and you might invite attention you don't want. And attention, here, is rarely harmless. Morning begins before anyone is ready. Lights snap on. Orders are shouted. There's no gradual start, just immediate compliance. Beds are checked. Bodies are counted. Every movement is monitored. Routine is rigid. But beneath it, tension simmers constantly. Meals are quick. Conversations are controlled. Where you sit matters. Who you sit near matters even more. There are invisible boundaries, lines you don't cross unless you understand the consequences. Food itself becomes currency. Trades happen quietly. Favors are exchanged. Nothing is free. Recreation offers space, but not freedom. Groups form naturally. Some based on background, others on necessity. Isolation can be dangerous. But the wrong association can be worse. So choices are made carefully. Every day. Over time, patterns emerge. You learn when to speak. When to stay silent. When to move, and when to remain completely still. Because routine here isn't about comfort. It's about survival. Authority inside Rikers doesn't come from uniforms alone. There is another hierarchy, one that operates without official recognition. And it's enforced by those who understand it best. Certain individuals carry influence. Not always because of violence, but because of reputation. Connections matter. History matters. And perception matters most of all. Control is subtle. A look. A gesture. A quiet conversation. Decisions are made without announcements. Conflicts are handled without witnesses. And sometimes, without warning. For those who fail to recognize this structure, mistakes happen quickly. And in Rikers, mistakes are rarely forgiven. Correction officers maintain order, but the balance is delicate. They walk the same corridors every day. They know the patterns. The tensions. The individuals to watch. Some enforce rules strictly. Others take a different approach. Because inside Rikers, control isn't always about intervention. Sometimes, it's about knowing when not to act. Resources are stretched. Units are crowded. And not every situation can be managed in real time. This creates gaps. Moments where authority fades, just enough for something else to take over. And in those moments, the environment shifts. Because what happens next is often decided by the people inside, not the system meant to control them. Violence in Rikers is rarely loud at first. It doesn't always build gradually. There are no clear signals. No countdown. Just a moment. And then it happens. Quick. Direct. Unpredictable. Sometimes it's over in seconds. Other times, it spreads. For those who witness it, the reaction is instinctive. Step back. Stay out of it. Don't look too long. Because involvement, intentional or not, can pull you into something you didn't choose. And here, that's a risk few are willing to take. But what makes Rikers different isn't just the violence itself. It's the uncertainty. Because you never know when it's coming. Or who it's coming from. And sometimes, the reason behind it is something you won't understand until it's already too late. As the day ends, the tension doesn't disappear. It settles. Quietly. Waiting. Because inside Rikers Island, the most dangerous moments aren't always the ones you see coming. And what happens after dark is something few are prepared for. Night inside Rikers doesn't bring silence. It changes the rhythm. The movement slows, but awareness sharpens. Every sound carries further in the dark, the creak of a bed frame, the shuffle of footsteps, a whisper that wasn't meant to travel. Sleep is never complete. Not here. Because once the doors are locked and the unit is sealed, the dynamic shifts. Officers remain present, but distant. Visibility decreases. Response times stretch. And in that space, tension finds room to grow. Some inmates stay awake deliberately. Not out of restlessness, but strategy. Night is when debts are remembered. When unresolved conflicts return. When quiet decisions made during the day begin to unfold. There are no official announcements. No warnings. Only subtle signals, movement where there shouldn't be, conversations that stop too quickly, shadows shifting in corners of the room. For those who recognize them, they mean one thing. Something is about to happen. And once it starts, there's no stepping away. Survival inside Rikers depends on rules that are never written down. No handbook explains them. No officer enforces them. But everyone learns them, quickly. Or pays the price. Respect is currency. Not respect in the traditional sense, but recognition of boundaries. Physical space. Personal belongings. Unspoken hierarchies. You don't touch what isn't yours. You don't interrupt certain conversations. And above all, you don't involve yourself in situations that don't concern you. Information is controlled. Questions are limited. Curiosity can be dangerous. Because knowing too much, or asking too much, can place you in the middle of something you were never meant to understand. And once you're there, stepping back isn't always possible. There's also a rule about weakness. It's not discussed. But it's always observed. Moments of hesitation. Fear. Uncertainty. They don't go unnoticed. And in an environment where perception defines reality, being seen the wrong way can change everything. Inside Rikers, almost everything comes at a cost. Even things that seem freely given. A snack. A favor. Protection. Nothing is ever just a gesture. It's an agreement. And agreements here don't need signatures. They're understood. Debts accumulate quickly. Sometimes intentionally. Sometimes without realizing it. A newcomer might accept help, thinking it's kindness. But later, the expectation becomes clear. Repayment isn't always material. Sometimes, it's a request. Sometimes, it's participation. And sometimes, it's something far more difficult to refuse. Refusing a debt isn't just about saying no. It's about challenging a system that doesn't tolerate defiance. And once that line is crossed, the consequences don't come immediately. They wait. Building. Until the moment is right. For some, the pressure of the dorm isn't the hardest part. It's what happens when you're removed from it. Isolation units, often referred to as the box, are designed for control. For discipline. For separation. But what they create goes beyond silence. They create distance from reality. Time behaves differently here. Without conversation. Without movement. Without distraction. Minutes stretch. Hours blur. Days lose definition. The mind fills the space left behind. Thoughts repeat. Memories resurface. And without interruption, they intensify. Some adapt. They build routines. Find ways to stay grounded. Others don't. Voices are heard, not always from outside. Emotions shift without warning. Anger turns inward. Or outward. And when someone returns from isolation, they're not always the same. Because the environment may change. But what it does to the mind stays. Access to medical care inside Rikers is a system of its own. Requests are made. Forms are filled. Names are added to lists. And then, there's waiting. Sometimes hours. Sometimes days. Sometimes longer. For minor issues, delays are frustrating. For serious ones, they can become something else entirely. Pain doesn't pause while paperwork moves. Conditions don't stabilize on their own. And uncertainty adds another layer of strain. Because not knowing when, or if, help will arrive, changes how people react. Some push harder. Demand attention. Others stay quiet. Endure. But in an environment already defined by tension, discomfort, and unpredictability. Physical vulnerability becomes another risk. And when that risk intersects with everything else happening inside, it creates situations that escalate faster than anyone expects. Despite constant surveillance, control inside Rikers is never absolute. There are gaps. And where there are gaps, systems form. Contraband moves through the facility in ways that aren't immediately visible. Through vents. Through shared spaces. Through people. Phones. Substances. Items not permitted, but highly valued. They circulate quietly. And with them, influence grows. Because access creates leverage. Leverage creates power. And power reshapes the balance inside the unit. Those who control supply don't need to speak loudly. Their position is understood. Protected. Challenged only by those willing to take significant risks. And when those challenges happen, they don't unfold in the open. They happen in moments that seem ordinary, until they're not. Without warning, everything stops. Stand up. Step away. Orders come fast. And they're not repeated. Shakedowns are unpredictable. Timing varies. Frequency changes. But the objective is always the same. Control. Every space is searched. Every item examined. Privacy, what little exists, is removed completely. Inmates stand by, watching. Silent. Because reaction can be misinterpreted. And misinterpretation carries consequences. For some, it's routine. For others, it's disruption. Because what's taken isn't always returned. And what's found doesn't always belong to who it's found near. Which creates another layer of tension. Because responsibility inside Rikers isn't always about ownership. It's about proximity. And proximity can be enough to change everything. There's a point inside Rikers that isn't marked on any timeline. It doesn't happen at intake. Or after the first night. It builds. Gradually. Through routine. Through tension. Through moments that seem small, but aren't. Until something shifts. It could be a misunderstanding. A delayed response. A look that's taken the wrong way. Or something that's been building for days, finally reaching the surface. And when it happens, it's not always explosive. Sometimes, it's controlled. Focused. Directed. Which makes it even harder to predict. Because by the time others realize what's happening, it's already begun. And what follows doesn't stay contained for long. Morning returns the same way it always does. Quietly. Almost indifferently. From the outside, nothing has changed. The city moves. Traffic builds. Life continues just a few miles away. But inside Rikers Island, the night never fully leaves. For those who pass through here, the experience doesn't end at the gates. It follows them. In habits. In reactions. In the way they read a room, long after they've left it. Because survival inside Rikers isn't something you turn off. It's something you carry. Some leave with time served. Others leave with cases still unresolved. But almost all leave with something less visible. An understanding of how quickly order can disappear. How fragile control really is. And how environments like this don't just hold people. They shape them. Inside, the system continues. New arrivals take the place of those who leave. The routines repeat. The same tensions resurface in different forms. Because nothing here is ever truly finished. It just moves on to someone else. And that's the part that's hardest to see from the outside. Rikers Island isn't defined only by walls, fences, or cells. It's defined by what happens within them. The decisions made in silence. The rules no one explains. The moments that change people, permanently. Because long after someone walks out, a part of this place stays with them. Unseen. Unspoken. But never fully gone. And for those still inside, the next moment is already waiting.